Hello and welcome to Geek History Lesson. I'm Ashley Victoria Robinson.
And I'm Jason. All my appendages are bionic. Inman, welcome to your mind university, because we are Geek History Lesson, the podcast where we're going to take one character, one woman, one team, one concept, one color, one book, one issue, one movie, one event, and explain it to you in less than an hour. Luckily, today is all just a character.
Yes, just one single awesome character.
Man, I cannot wait for the Comic Book Color podcast. It's going to be exciting. All right, so we're just explaining Misty Knight. And why are we explaining Misty Knight of all the characters in the multiverse?
Well, Luke Cage has taken over the world, and Misty Knight is a big part of Luke Cage, and we thought, when the heck are we ever going to talk about Misty Knight? So we are bringing all of her awesomeness to you today.
I think that was the exact conversation. We were like, when will we ever have the chance to do Misty Knight again?
When we co-write her next amazing series.
Amazing!
There you go.
Okay, well, let's jump right into this very special Harlem-induced episode of Geek History Lesson with the 10-cent origin, the first section of our podcast, where we're going to give you the Cliff Notes version of everything that you need to know about Misty Knight in case you happen to go to a Harlem blaxploitation Luke Cage cocktail party and someone's like, yo, who is Misty Knight? And you're like, well, I got you here, buddy, because I listened to Geek History Lesson. So you ready for this, Ashley? Go.
Totally. So the 10-cent origin is her name is Mercedes Misty Knight.
Ooh.
And her aliases include Colleen Wing, Maya Corday, and Control, even though I could not find where she's called Control, but I found that interesting. She's, of course, a Marvel Comics character created by Tony Isabella and Arvell Jones, who first appeared in Marvel Premiere number 21 in March of 1975, so not that long after Luke Cage busted onto the scene. Misty was a New York City police officer who has been associated with several other teams, including Heroes for Hire, Daughters of the Dragon, and Nightwing Restorations Limited.
Is that Nightwing with the K?
No.
Whoa.
And her notable partnerships have been with Iron Fist, Colleen Wing, and Luke Cage. Her abilities include being a highly skilled martial artist, proficient in hand-to-hand combat, a superb detective, which is apparently a superpower now, near perfect aim due to a bionic right arm, and superhuman strength, technopathy, magnetism, and concussive blast. And like I said earlier, she is played by Simone Missick in the Luke Cage series on the Netflix.
And I think she's pretty awesome.
She is pretty awesome, and she's pretty too.
She's pretty pretty.
She's pretty pretty.
Okay. Let's move on to the next section of the podcast, the Meet Cute, where we're going to steal a term from Reddit Comedies and tell you where we first encountered the character that we are talking about today. Ashley, where did you first encounter the character of Misty Knight?
The first time I remember being aware of who Misty Knight is was when the Cullen Bunn and Will Sliney Fearless Defenders series came out in 2013, because I really, really liked the cover. They have a really famous cover to their first issue where Misty Knight is back-to-back with Valkyrie.
The Charlie's Angel pose.
Yes, exactly. And it's so good. And that series is actually like so amazing. And not enough people have read it, but you can pick it'll be in my recommended reading. That Fearless Defender series is a ton of fun. I read the first few issues.
Cullen, a great friend of the podcast.
Has been on the podcast before. So that's why we have to say nice things about it. No, it's actually amazing, though. So go check it out. And then Misty Knight has cropped up in a couple X-Men titles since then.
Really?
And before that as well. Yeah, she's basically an honorary X-person, even though she's not a mutant. But the first time I was really aware of her, was when Fearless Defenders launched as part of the Marvel Now initiative. How about you? Where did you first meet Misty Knight?
Well, I have two meeting Misty Knight stories.
Ooh, sexy.
Number one was I was reading the Ed Brubaker, Matt Fraction, I think it's Invincible Iron Fist? Or
I think so.
I don't know what the I word is, but it's something like that. Immortal Iron Fist. There we go. And during one scene in the very early issues, Danny is in bed with a very lovely lady, and that I was like, who is this lovely lady? And I eventually came out to find that it's Misty Knight, because Misty and Luke and Colleen are big parts of that book. So I went and Wikipedia'd Misty Knight and figured out who she was. Also, I have a very funny insidery baseball story about Misty Knight and you were there, and it's I wanted to tell this story on air because we went and covered the Civil War, Captain America Civil War premiere for comicbook.com.
We did.
And I'm going to forget his name, the showrunner.
Chio something.
Yeah, I feel really bad.
Chio, I'm sorry.
The showrunner of Luke Cage came up to us, and he had a very lovely lady next to him, and you were reporting, and I was recording the footage and stuff like that. And I remember you asking him who the lovely lady with him is, and he goes, "Oh, this is Misty Knight." And we were both
she hadn't been announced yet.
Yeah, and we were both like, And I remember her just being like super cool and super awesome, and she was really cool. And I remember when they walked away, you and I were like, wow, she is going to be a fantastic Misty Knight. And she is.
Yes.
She's a really good Misty Knight. So that worked out. But we've actually meet-cuted Misty Knight.
That's true.
In person.
And I do remember we also asked her about how much butt kicking she got down to, and she said very much.
Yeah, she says she's pretty physical.
Yeah, and I think she lived up to that.
All right, there you go. All right, so let's move on into the History 101 of the Geek History Lesson podcast on Misty Knight. This is where Professor Ashley is going to open up the tomes, as I call them, the tomes. Her giant tomes on Misty Knight, and to reveal to us the secrets of Misty Knight's backstory.
So Misty Knight, as one would imagine, was basically created as a female answer to Luke Cage.
No surprise there.
Right, came out right around the same time. You can pretty much tell just by looking at her. And there's not a ton of information about her early childhood, unfortunately, in the current publication history. But if she is a character who really takes off in popularity with Luke Cage, which I think is going to happen, then we might see more of that flushed out. So if this is something that listeners, you are interested in, then you should tell Marvel that you would like to see more about Misty Knight and you would like her to get a solo series, and that you would like Jason and I to write it. That would be super cool of you. Thanks.
Wow, I might just let you have that one. I don't think I feel qualified enough to write Misty Knight.
I think we could do it. We get a really kick-ass lady of color to draw it. And
can I have Danny make an appearance in every issue?
You can write the Danny scenes.
Okay.
How about that?
Danny's going to show up in every issue, and he's going to make a peanut butter sandwich. But Misty hates peanut butter. The drama unfolds.
So as a New York City police officer, Misty threw herself heroically in front of a bomb to save her fellow officers, and her right arm was injured and eventually amputated.
I never knew that about her. That's crazy.
I didn't either. I learned a lot of really interesting things.
That's really cool.
So, however, rather than resign herself to being a desk jockey for the rest of her career, she elected to resign from the NYPD, which seems a little bit rash, but Misty's a little fiery.
Well, you never know. You never know what people go through with trauma. So
Definitely. But so she did that. And who should come to her rescue but Mr. Tony Stark himself, who built a bionic arm for Misty that not only functions as a perfect replica of a human arm, but imbues her with superhuman strength as well.
Wow.
And is sometimes referred to as the Satan arm or the satanic arm, and there is a satanic arm 2.0 as well. So there you go. Not long after getting her new bionic arm, as we will refer to it, Misty met both Spider-Man and Iron Fist for the first time, and they convinced her that she should be a superhero in her own right. Because they're like, girl, you're pretty impressive and you got cool hair. That's all you need to be a superhero. So she eventually went to live at the X Mansion in order to undertake a more complete training regimen, because although she had trained as an NYPD officer and she knew the city, she didn't really know what it meant to be a superhero. And you know what? If you're a superhero in the Marvel Universe and you need training, the X Mansion or the Baxter Building are probably the two best places you can go to.
The X Mansion is an interesting choice, but I imagine with the Danger Room, you can get a lot of training in there.
Yeah, if you're just looking for kind of your basic tactical training, it's a good place to go. And fun fact, she roomed with none other than Marvel Girl during this time.
Really?
Who had recently rejoined the team herself. Marvel Girl is, of course, one of Jean Grey's identities.
Her first one.
Her very first one. The one with the pointy little eye pieces. It's a really cool costume. And something you have to know right now is that Misty has a best friend named Colleen Wing. Colleen Wing is an Iron Fist character who will be played by Jessica Henwick in the Netflix Marvel TV show adaptation.
Is being played because it's out right now.
No, she's going to be an Iron Fist.
Oh, she's not. Oh, okay. Got my bad. My bad.
Okay.
I got ahead because again, I'm so excited for Iron Fist. Apologies.
So there we go. But she's going to be an Iron Fist, and she's also an actress who was in Game of Thrones. Fun fact, like our Mr. Iron Fist himself. And what you need to know about Colleen is that she uses chi grants in much the same way that many Iron Fist characters do, and she's basically the white version of Misty Knight, who she's frequently teamed up with.
Okay.
So that's your little 10-cent origin of Colleen Wing. If you want to request an episode on her, you can do that.
Sure.
Now back to Misty Knight. So when she's done with her tenure at the X Mansion and she feels confident as a superhero, she teams up with Colleen Wing, who we just talked about. And together they chase down a villain named Emile Vachon, and they chase him all the way to Hong Kong. And while there, Misty saves Colleen from being raped, and they...
Whoa. We went dark here.
well, they're female characters. What else are you going to do to threaten them but threaten rape? And based on this, they become best friends, cum partners, and this is sealed basically for the rest of their publication history. To this very day, they are still bestie best friends. And together, they returned to New York City from Hong Kong, and they found a private detective agency called Nightwing Restorations Limited. Nightwing, the way you think that the hero is spelled. And I just want to take this moment to point out the similarity between these two characters and Jessica Jones, another really important Luke Cage character. Now, Brian Michael Bendis, who created Jessica Jones, is a writer who loves 1970s characters.
Yeah, 100%.
And Jessica Jones is considered by a lot of people to be his greatest creation, held up against Miles Morales, depending on what kind of hero you like more. And for me, when you look at Misty Knight, you can see a lot of really obvious influences here. She became a superhero under duress. She works as a detective. She opens her own agency, and that basically could be used to sum up Jessica Jones as well. Fun fact, everything in comics is actually cyclical. Now, another really important relationship of Misty's is with Danny Rand. Jason, who's Danny Rand?
Danny Rand is the Iron Fist.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that. So not too long after Misty and Danny met
You need me to explain it more than that?
No, that's perfect.
Okay, cool.
If you want to listen on Iron Fist, you can go and request it. So not long after she met Danny that first time, they kept kind of running into each other, and they fall in love and proceed to have a very on-again, off-again relationship, as is wont to happen in the comics medium.
Yep.
We're going to talk a lot about Danny going forward.
Well, yeah, because they go on again, they go off again. They've been on again, off again for 30 years?
30 plus years, yeah. Yes. And for a long time, Misty's only appearances were in Iron Fist books. So we're stuck with Danny, guys. I'm sorry. So she helps out
I'm okay with that.
She helps out Iron Man, Spider-Man, and Colleen Wing take down a villain called the Steel Serpent, who at the time was a man named Davos. Steel Serpent is a well-known Iron Fist villain affiliated with Hydra that David Aja very famously featured on one of his Iron Fist covers. And of course, they defeat him because they're the good guys, and this is comics. The Steel Serpent is also a character who will come in and out of Misty Knight's history a lot.
Really?
Yes.
Well, he's one of Danny's main villains. So.
Yes. So more on him later.
Okay.
During this time, Misty is also engaged in an undercover investigation into a crime lord named John Bushmaster, often just referred to as Bushmaster, with some superpowers in his own right. If you recall from last week's Luke Cage episode, we did talk about Bushmaster a little bit there. And this is also, ironically, the same time where Misty meets Power Man for the first time. Now, Jason, can you remind us really quick, who is Power Man?
Well, Power Man is a guy named Carl Lucas, who is a guy named Luke Cage. He don't take no guff. He wears yellow t-shirts and a lovely tiara.
Yes, sometimes he does. Sometimes,
and he has unbreakable skin.
Yes, awesomely. And this marks a continuing and prosperous relationship and business partnership between Nightwing Restoration Limited and Heroes for Hire on a number of cases.
That is a terrible company name. I'm sorry.
It was the 70s. It was New York.
But I get Nightwing, the Dick Grayson character in publication history, is not around yet.
No, is not. Yeah. So who stole from who? Nobody knows. But it's a terrible name because it doesn't tell you that they're a private detective agency. Yeah. Like, it's a bunch of cool words stuck together.
Yeah.
So, like I said, they team up on a bunch of cases, including rescuing several captives who were being held hostage by John Bushmaster, who we mentioned just a second ago. And during this time, they managed to steal a videotape that Bushmaster has that clears Luke Cage of several charges that were being held against him in a court of law.
The original charges that we learned last week, the original charges that made him a felon.
Yes. So they Misty Knight is paramount in clearing Luke Cage's good name and restoring him to full hero status in the Marvel Universe.
Yep.
So then we talk about a character named Nightshade. Nightshade, a.k.a. Tilda Johnson, is a Captain America villain who also happens to be an African-American woman from a poor neighborhood in New York City. So why not pit her against Misty Knight? Makes sense, right? Nightshade kidnaps and nearly kills Misty Knight, and this traumatic experience drives her away from the Heroes for Hires and back into the arms of the X-Men. She has this horrible experience, and she says, I guess I need to go and train more. So during her tenure with the X-Men for the second time, Misty convinces Colleen Wing to join up with her and Sunfire and the rest of the X-Men in Japan to take down a villain named Moses Magnum, who's an arms dealer and a terrorist in and around the Marvel Universe. He's very minor. Sunfire is, of course, a founding member of the Big Hero 6, who we have a lesson on. They also go on to take down Sabretooth, very famous X-Men character, and then Sabretooth and the Constrictor together.
Constrictor's like a stank guy.
A snake guy?
Yeah, he has a sneeze.
I thought you said a stank guy,
No.
and I was like, maybe he's stinky. I don't know.
Well, I mean, his snake suit is so close to the skin that I guarantee you he is stinky.
Well, when he sheds, it's probably okay.
He's a snake guy.
Yes, and I believe you also mentioned him last week. So not long after this, Misty is kidnapped by a character named Ward Meacham. Misty gets kidnapped a lot, unfortunately.
No.
Jason, do you know who Ward Meacham is?
No. But he, but I'm trying to remember this joke of like Beecham. Like there's some TV show or something that I watched.
Meacham is Kevin Spacey's bodyguard / boyfriend
in House of Cards.
Yes.
Yeah, he's Mr. Freeze on Gotham now, so that's not right.
Yes, and he's Jesse Custer's dad.
In Preacher, yep.
There you go.
So no, I don't know who he is.
Okay, well, Ward Meacham is Wendell Rand's business partner who killed him and spent a tenure as the Steel Serpent.
Oh.
Wendell Rand, of course, father of Danny Rand.
Yeah, so he caused the plane crash.
Yeah, so he's an Iron Fist bad guy.
I have never heard that name before.
Well, now you know.
Yep.
From the 70s. When Misty wins back her freedom, she begins dating a man named Tyrone King, a.k.a. the villain Master Khan.
Dun, dun, dun.
Bad guy. And kind of the worst thing to come out of this time is the split between Misty and Colleen. Colleen doesn't see how Misty could be with such an evil dude, and she thinks that she's only dating Tyrone King to get back at Danny, which is proven to not actually be true. Misty's just kind of not in a great place at that time. She eventually kicks Tyrone King to the curb after she saves Danny from drowning and falls madly back in love with him, abandoning her bad boyfriend ways.
Yay.
So now is the moment we've all been waiting for. Following another breakup with Danny Rand, our Misty Knight finally and briefly dates Luke Cage. Now, I think we saw this coming from a mile away because Misty was originally created as an answer to Luke Cage. How could they not wind up together? Misty's prior relationships with both Luke Cage and Danny Rand become a source of tension between the heroes for hire for some time after that.
I would imagine.
Right. Unfortunately, even though she kind of sticks around and is a really important figure in their life, but she does do that thing that happens in any good love triangle, and she dates both of them.
Or sitcom or TV show.
Yes. This is to date, at the time of this recording, the only time Misty Knight has dated Luke Cage. Mm-hmm. She's going to go on to date Danny a whole bunch of times after this.
Look, she can date whoever she wants, but she had to know that this was going to cause some friction. It would have been like Danny dating Jessica Jones before Luke and Jessica got married.
Right, or Danny dating Colleen, who is Misty's best friend and her partner.
Same thing. Yeah, exactly. Like it would have, like, come on, adults, use your brain.
Right. And like I said, I really want to stress that to the time of this recording, they've only dated this one time because, again, I think maybe depending on how people receive the show and what the comics do in reaction to the show, there might be a chance for that ground to be retread.
Sure.
So like I said, Misty only very briefly dated Luke Cage, and her relationship brought a lot of tension in the Heroes for Hire going forward. But, you know, you can help us listeners keep the tension from between Professor Jason and Ashley if you head on over to patreon.com/Jawiin, Jawiin, and help us keep the lights on here. We have all kinds of cool stuff that you can get over there. You can get Geek History Lesson a day early and drop some of these knowledge bombs as if they were your own. And you can also get Geek...
Is that why you want to listen to Geek History Lesson early? So that they can, like...
So that you can run to all your friends who also listen to Geek History Lesson and be like, yo, I already got the 10 cent
You can plagiarize us very early?
It's not plagiarism. You're welcome to it.
That's a good selling point. I'm fine with it. Continue. Sorry.
You can also get the Geek History Lesson Extra podcast where we give you some supplemental discussion on something else. And this week, we are talking about what we want to see Misty Knight do going forward in the comics.
Yep.
Exciting stuff. Thank you so much for everyone who's already donated over at Patreon and partaken in some of these amazing awards. Now let's get right back into the Misty Knight history lesson. Yeah.
Thanks for your support, Patreons.
You're the best. Now, I know you were really worried about what Danny Rand was up to at this time, but don't worry. He was not gone from Misty's life for very long.
Whew.
Although, if you remember, he did get punched by like a weird tree alien and was presumed dead for a long time. Mm-hmm. But Misty, because she knows Danny better than anybody else in the Marvel Universe, she noticed that the Super Skrull was impersonating him.
Oh, interesting.
And that not good.
Well, it was the Super Skrull was who killed the plant creature that was impersonating Danny.
Yes.
The Super Skrull was not Danny.
No.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But that's really cool. So she more so than Luke Cage realized that was a doppelganger.
Yes, she's the one who figured out that it wasn't actually Danny Rand.
That's cool, because Luke Cage didn't even figure it out.
Yeah, because Misty actually sees like fake Danny on television, and then she confronts fake Danny, and she's like, "You're not the real Iron Fist," and she gets Weird Tree Alien to admit that he's not actually Danny Rand.
She's like, "Look, I know Danny don't like no Honey Nut Cheerios," and he's like, "I love Honey Nut Cheerios." Like, Danny likes Frosted Cheerios. You're a liar.
See, I think it's interesting that you expect it to be Luke Cage would be the person who'd be able to sort of figure this out. I really like that it's Misty because Misty's supposed to be this really, really smart private detective. She is a detective,
yeah.
So, of course, she would be the one who, using her wit and her knowledge, would be able to get that out of not Danny Rand.
I also want to point out here, too, Misty Knight and Luke Cage's relationship maybe proves that Luke Cage has a thing for detectives.
Oh, that's interesting.
Jessica's a detective, too.
That is true.
So there you go.
Well, then what does that say about Claire Temple?
She detects how people are hurt.
And she deduces how to help.
Okay, you ruined it.
Okay, so here's my new question for you. Okay. Would Luke Cage date Batman?
No. But he would date Commissioner Gordon.
Done. Headcanon accepted. Somebody start the fan iron. So next, Misty Knight teams up with Namor the Submariner.
That seems obvious.
Right. Well, Namor, if you'll remember from the Fantastic Four episode, will do just about anything to sidle up next to a pretty girl, and Misty Knight is a pretty girl. So she teams up with him, and together they travel to the Savage Land, where they confirmed that the Super Skrull had been hiding Danny, and they join forces with Namorita, who's like Namor, but a girl, and they fight the Super Skrull, and they free Danny from captivity.
Yay!
And Iron Fist is back in the world. And together they were able to locate and free Danny, and then they renew their romantic relationship all in one fell swoop. And this point in comics publication history is basically the modern age of comics, because the next event that we're going to talk about is a little thing that happened called Civil War.
Wow, we're doing quite a jump here.
Well, like I said, during the 70s and 80s, Misty basically only appears in Iron Fist or Power Man in Iron Fist.
And then the 90s, she just disappears?
Kinda.
Okay.
Yep. And then she very much is like set dressing here and there, and then following Civil War, she makes more regular appearances in the Marvel Universe.
All right, so we're up to the Civil War, the superhero Civil War, where Captain America was like, "I don't like you, Iron Man," and Iron Man was like, "I don't like you, Captain America," and they punched each other a lot until Captain America surrendered, and then he got shot.
Right, but a big thing about Civil War was the Superhuman Registration Act, and the movie would have you believe differently, and where all the characters came down during this event. So during this time, both Misty Knight and Colleen Wing are contacted by Tony Stark, Reed Richards, and Spider-Man, who want them to reform the Heroes for Hire with the intent of having them act as a strike team to hunt down and capture heroes that don't want to register. So they kind of want them to be their hired muscle. I guess, for lack of a better phrase. And although the women are initially hesitant, Heroes for Hire does get reformed, with the ladies teaming up with Shang-Chi, Humbug, Orca, Black Cat, Paladin, the new Tarantula, and a bunch of other people you've never heard of, and basically taking down everybody that Tony, Reed, and Peter think need to be forced to sign the accords.
I guess.
Yeah. Following Civil War, Misty is selected as one of the 142 superheroes to take part in the Initiative. Jason, what is the Initiative?
The Initiative is where Iron Man was like, "Hey, we have too many superheroes in New York City, so let's put a superhero team in every single state of the United States, and if we train any new kids, we have to train them how to go join those states and be great superheroes." Sadly, it is the coolest thing that was introduced post-Civil War, and was basically forgotten in less than 8 months.
Yeah, it's a real bummer because it's a really great idea.
I know, and I have an amazing pitch for what the Kansas team would have been, too.
I believe you. And it's something that every time Marvel does a big, giant world-ending event, I kind of hope that they're going to bring it back and actually do it right.
The Initiative?
Yeah, because you could do it. You could have done it after Secret Wars. You could do it after Civil War 2.
Well,
it's such a great idea that could be dropped anywhere in the Marvel universe.
It's an intriguing idea because the idea that there is an Avengers team in every single state makes a lot of sense.
And it really opens up the Marvel universe outside of New York City.
Yes, it really does. Which is something that I think DC has quite an advantage of. Even though most DC properties take place in fictional cities, those fictional cities kind of stand in for real cities. Like Coast City is essentially San Diego and stuff like that. And Opal City is essentially Portland.
But the fun thing about that, too, is you can basically assume that your city's Gotham if you want.
Sure.
Or Metropolis or wherever you want to live.
But yeah, the Initiative is such a cool idea that I wish was still around. And Civil War was 10 years ago.
Yes. And I think the Initiative could have been great if they'd taken characters like Misty Knight, like Colleen Wing, who haven't had their chance to really lead a team or kind of have their moment in the sun. You could have really opened up your roster of heroes away from your classic Avengers, X-Men, Fantastic Four lineup.
And the Avengers, the Initiative series, which is about sending these heroes out to these states and also training the new kids, is a great book. It's really good.
I would almost hazard that it is in my recommended reading.
Oh my Lord.
So skipping back to the lesson, at this time, Iron Fist had just joined the new Avengers, and he gets super bent out of shape about Misty joining the Initiative, having thought that they would remain together as part of the same team. They also come down on opposite sides of the argument of the Superhero Registration Act, and this puts a lot of pressure in their relationship, as one might suspect that it would.
And this was Luke Cage's new Avengers team that was against Iron Man's pro-registration team.
Yes, it is. It is one of my favorite Avengers team.
Yeah, it is. It is one of my favorite new Avengers teams of all time, I would say. Because sort of this dark, it's like the street level heroes. Because Luke Cage is Iron Fist. It's Spider-Man back in his black suit. It's Ronin, but it's Hawkeye. Hawkeye Ronin. And there's a couple others in there, and it's Doctor Strange, and they all live in Doctor Strange's house.
In his magical mansion.
Yep.
They aren't separated for very long though, because Hydra teams up with the Steel Serpent. Remember that guy from the last 3 times we mentioned him? In order to kill Iron Fist and destroy the 7 cities of heaven. Now, the Steel Serpent doesn't know that Hydra's trying to take down the 7 cities of heaven because that's where he's from, but that is Hydra's end goal. They're like, all these mystical cities? I don't think so. So, as you can tell, it's a very simple, straightforward, logical plan.
And that is all during the Immortal Iron Fist series that I talked about.
Yes.
And also, fair listeners out there, I would hazard a guess that is going to be the main thrust of the Iron Fist TV series.
Ooh, place your nerd bets now. Misty grabs Colleen and Luke Cage, and the 3 rush to Danny's aid, saving Iron Fist from almost certain destruction at the hands of his enemies and defeating Hydra. Yay! The team of 4 turns right around to stop a terrorist attack on the mystical city of Kunlun, which I recently learned is spelled with apostrophes.
Yep.
In
both words.
Yes. Where Danny takes Misty's hand and tells her, I can't do a man's voice, I'm sorry. I love you, Misty, ... but I make a lousy boyfriend. Just such a dude thing to say. And contrary to what you might... it just seems like such a we're never going to be together. So I'm going to tell you that I love you, but I'm also going to sort of break up with you.
Okay.
It seems like such a 19-year-old boy thing to say. And I know Danny's supposed to be older than that.
Yeah.
But contrary to what you might think, they don't break up, in fact. They continue to sleep together. And for Marvel Comics, it's fairly explicit that they are sleeping together and not necessarily dating. Before they do go on to commit themselves to each other on Danny's birthday. They don't get married, but they do have a commitment ceremony kind of thing.
And that's the finale of the Immortal Iron Fist, is Danny's birthday.
Yes. It's a really good... That final issue is really, really good.
The whole series is great.
Well, I've only read the final issue, sorry.
Oh, okay.
And despite the fact that they do continue to disagree over the Superhuman Registration Act, they decide that being together and being a united force in the superhero community is the best choice for them to make.
Yeah, Misty.
Yeah, it's actually a really beautiful moment, and I wish we could have had more of Misty and Danny's domestic life, because I really like them together as a couple. They're a nice yin and yang. Then World War Hulk happens. Can you sum up World War Hulk really quick?
Hulk sent to planet by Iron Man. Hulk come back to Earth real pissed. Hulk smash
I want you to describe all events going forward as the lead character.
As the lead character? Sure.
That was so great. So basically the Hulk is smashing New York City, okay?
Yeah, basically.
So Misty and the Heroes for Hire, they're back on a team. They're all doing cool stuff. They go out to capture a character named Moon Boy. Moon Boy is this weird little monkey guy who hangs out with Devil Dinosaur. And they return to New York City with Moon Boy only to discover that it is being completely taken over by a rampaging Hulk, as you may have guessed from Jason's summary. Misty and her team must save their captured teammates Colleen and Tarantula, and she has to make a couple difficult decisions in order to have that happen. She's forced to trade away Moon Boy in order to ensure their safety.
Not the monkey.
Not the little monkey. And Colleen, who had really developed a bond with him because he's so cute, is enraged to learn that Misty would give up Moon Boy, an innocent who she had become very attached to. And this remained a source of tension between the two friends for a long time going forward.
I love this, that Moon Boy is the source of tension between Misty and Colleen. I love this.
This is really dumb, guys. I'm sorry.
This sounds like my favorite storyline of all time.
I mean, it's not often I get to include Moon Boy in one of my lessons.
Such a treasure. Such a treasure.
I actually went out of my way to include that story because it basically ends right there and doesn't really change anything.
Just listeners, just to know, if you've never gone back and listened to our best X-Men team ever, which is appropriate because Misty spent a lot of time with X-Men, we picked our X-Men team, and I'm pretty certain the only reason that Ashley put Moon Boy and talked about Devil Dinosaur in this lesson is because I put Moon Boy and Devil Dinosaur on my X-Men team.
No, I think you only put Devil Dinosaur on your team.
Yeah, but it's a given that Moon Boy comes along.
But now there's Moon Girl.
Yeah.
And she's really cool.
I don't want her. I want the monkey.
So
She can go hang out with Kamala Khan.
I can have Moon Girl on my team?
Yeah, sure.
Done.
I want the monkey.
Okay. Fine. I actually don't think Kamala's on my X-Men team, but whatever. Heroes for Hire is permanently disbanded in the aftermath of these events. Moon Boy breaks up Heroes for Hire.
Moon Boy is the Yoko Ono of the Marvel Universe.
Wait, hashtag Moon Boy Yoko?
Moon Boy is Yoko. Hashtag Moon Boy is Yoko.
I want to see this. I want to see this for years to come. I keep seeing Bear Without Fear. Moon Boy is Yoko.
Moon Boy is Yoko.
And this, of course, caused Misty to become greatly depressed. Why wouldn't you? Blaming herself and her actions for the breakup of the team, even though we all know that it was Yoko. I mean, Moon Boy.
Moon Boy.
Iron Man then recruits Misty to join him in taking down the Hulk's remaining, I almost said rampaging again, the Hulk's remaining robots, and being able to feel useful does a lot to help Misty feel normal again and start to get over the loss of the Heroes for Hire. Not long after this, Misty and Danny move into a cool new apartment together in Harlem. Seriously, look up the art. It's a really cool apartment and would have been really expensive, but Danny's rich, so that's okay.
Danny owns the building.
Probably. Just like Hawkeye.
Mm-hmm.
The same writer. There you go.
Yep.
Misty reveals to Danny that she is pregnant, which basically comes out of nowhere. And like a good boy, he proposes to her on the spot.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, it lasts for about 5 seconds.
Oh, okay.
None of the marital life happiness can last in comics, however, so it was actually retconned that Misty had a false pregnancy, and this caused a lot of stress and strain on her relationship with Danny. She was pregnant for 3 months in publication history. Someone had this idea, and then someone else was like, no babies.
The next writer was probably immediately like, nope.
Yeah, because babies complicate things, as Jessica and Luke would have known around this time. So she and Danny continue their relationship, but they elect to no longer live together in their super cool apartment, which is a total bummer. This leads right into a big Daredevil event called Shadowland. That Jason talked about last week, but can you, as Daredevil, tell us what Shadowland is?
I don't know how to do a Daredevil impression, though.
Well, it doesn't really matter. Just be Murdoch, so you use your normal voice. Close your eyes while you talk.
I should close my eyes while I talk?
Yeah.
Is that how you do it? Okay.
He's doing it.
I went crazy. I, Matt Murdock, have gone crazy. I've decided to wear a black costume, and I killed Bullseye because I'm going to lead the Hand, and I'm going to be the leader of the Hand. And Luke Cage, you don't tell me what to do, or I'm going to punch you up with the side of the face of the Billy Club. What? We're going to fight now? Okay, I'm normal.
Oh my God, that's the greatest thing ever. So so Shadowland happened.
I don't know how to do a Matt Murdock impression. There you go.
I thought you did a good job.
All right, there.
Following Daredevil's takeover of Hell's Kitchen, Misty teams up with Colleen Wing, who's forgiven her for Moon Boy, Iron Fist, Luke Cage, and Shang-Chi, and they try to take down Daredevil without employing any violence because they know they cannot beat him in hand-to-hand combat.
And Spider-Man.
Yes, and Spider-Man. Daredevil mistakenly assumes that this group caused a disturbance that actually happened somewhere else in his castle, and so he attacks them in retribution, and they have a really big fight.
Basically, this storyline, look, I like the idea of Shadowland. I think it's an interesting idea. It progresses naturally out of the Daredevil ongoing story that was written by Ed Brubaker. Shadowland's written by Andy Diggle. Mm-hmm. It's the problem with it is that there's a couple points in the story where Matt Murdock doesn't act like Matt Murdock.
Yeah, I can see that.
Well, it's kind of like a lot of Marvel events. We were talking about Civil War earlier.
Yeah.
To me, in Civil War, Captain America doesn't act like Captain America.
Yeah.
He acts certain ways just so the event can happen. And I feel Matt Murdock acts the same way in Shadowland. He only acts that way so that they can lead to a giant fight.
I think you made a very interesting observation, though, that they act that way to serve the event as opposed to the event serving the character's development. So then Misty teams up with Paladin, Silver Sable, and the Shroud to discover who is framing the hand for murder in New York City. So they get to do some actual detective work in the storyline, which is really nice because Misty's whole deal is that she's a detective and she's a really good detective.
Yep.
With Shadowland over and done with, Misty decides it's time to revive the Heroes for Hire at long last, because in the fictional storyline, it's been like 5 or 6 years since the Moon Boy incident, even though it hasn't been that long in publication history. And she decides to do that by changing the group's power structure. No longer will they remain a team with a leader, a lieutenant, and a bunch of soldiers. She places herself as a control figure that utilizes a variety of superhuman characters with various jobs based on their abilities and power sets. It's kind of like the way Sherlock Holmes runs the Baker Street Irregulars, because she doesn't keep many consistent workers. She uses people as she needs them. However, at the end of the first issue, it is revealed that Misty is not the Misty that we thought she was Misty, and that she's actually under the control of the Puppet Master.
Dun, dun, dun.
And the Puppet Master, for those who don't know, is a Marvel villain who makes radioactive clay maquettes based on people, and by attaching strings to them, he can manipulate their thoughts and actions.
Do you know who his daughter is?
I don't.
Alicia Masters of the Fantastic Four, the blind girlfriend of Ben Grimm.
And she's an artist.
And she is a sculptor of clay.
Oh, fascinating.
Yep, that's his daughter.
That's really cool. And I like that she's a nice lady.
Yep.
Misty is eventually freed by Iron Fist and Paladin, but continues to operate Heroes for Hire in the same way, although this time on her terms, placing herself at the head of this organization of basically a bunch of heroes. Then all new Marvel Now happens, which is not an event, contrary to popular belief. Misty leads the Fearless Defenders team that we talked about at the top of this episode, along with Valkyrie, in a storyline that lasted 13 issues, written by Cullen Bunn with art by Will Sliney. It's a great story. Misty and Valkyrie meet and team up to save a bunch of Asgardian artifacts that had been stolen. Misty gets to visit Asgard, which is super cool, and learn all about their female warrior culture, which is something that I feel like the Asgardian books and the Thor books do a really good job telling you about all their badass female warriors, and not a good job at showing you all their badass female warriors, and this book does both.
Great.
They do battle against a villain named Carolyn LeFay, and I think her last name might tell you who her mother was, who has kidnapped Danny Moonstar, a.k.a. Psyche, a.k.a. Mirage, who is an ex-character who is no longer a mutant, who's a Native American woman, who's basically Hawkeye. She's cool.
Oh, Moonstar, right?
Yeah.
I think she was on... she was either part of the New Mutants or Alpha Flight.
New Mutants.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know if she was on Alpha Flight, but she led the New Mutants for like a minute.
Yeah, she was in the New Mutants, right, yeah.
Caroline winds up joining the team and becoming an ally pretty soon after that, and Misty winds up taking a back seat in the leadership department as the team faces more and more Asgardian and magic-based threats, which forces Valkyrie to step up repeatedly. Just as a woman with a bionic arm, you can't do a ton against magic, unfortunately, which is, I would say, one of the only detriments of this book. She goes on to investigate a slew of monster attacks in New York City's Chinatown neighborhood and winds up having to deal with a bunch of brood hatchlings that have been brought into the city. Broods are like these weird insectoid aliens in the Marvel Universe.
Yep.
Toward the end of the storyline, Misty goes to Los Angeles, California to hang out with me, where she recruits Frankie Ray, who is a female Nova, kind of a minor character. She convinces Frankie to join her and the Fearless Defenders to defeat the Doom Maidens, who are like the evil versions of the Valkyries, once and for all, which of course they succeed at in issue 13. And then Misty's final and most recent appearance as part of the all-new, all-different, all-diverse Marvel Now was in Sam Wilson's Captain America series, even though that's not a character that she really had any pre-existing relationship with. She's a supporting character who helps Sam deal with his doubts, and they kind of date, and they kind of just do things in bed together, kind of like her previous relationship with Iron Fist. And that is where we are with Misty Knight.
Oh, it's too bad she's not in the current Heroes for Hire series.
Yeah, I mean, they might be getting there. I know that sometimes when you're trying to reintroduce a team and sort of rebrand it in order to attach it to a TV show, that you want to spread things out a little more slowly. But I was really surprised that she wasn't in the new series either.
All right, cool.
That's it.
That's it. All for the history of Misty Knight.
Yes.
She hasn't showed up in any cartoons or anything like that?
She has not.
Oh, wow. That's get on that, cartoon people.
Yeah, well, white people.
There you go. All right, next let's move into the I almost wanted to skip ahead to the discussion, but we're actually going to go to recommended reading.
Yes.
Where Professor Ashley is going to tell you some books in case you want to read some more about Misty Knight. And guys, if you want to read any of these books, you go over to recommended reading, geekhistorylesson.com/recommended reading. And if you click on the little widgets, it'll take you to Amazon. You can buy the books, you can read the books, you can enjoy the books, and a piece of your purchase will come back to allow us on this podcast to keep it going and keep recommending books.
So I've said it before, and I will say it again. The best Misty Knight stuff is the Fearless Defender stuff from Marvel now. You can get 2 awesome volumes, nice soft covers, really cool collections. You can find them. Fearless Defenders Volume 1 and Volume 2. They have Misty Knight and Valkyrie on the cover. You've seen these as posters. They're absolutely beautiful art. She kicks butt in it. And you get to learn a lot about the Asgardian culture, which is not something I bet you expected from a Misty Knight storyline.
No.
And then the third thing that I want to recommend is Avengers The Initiative Volume 1.
Okay.
Because even though that's not a story that panned out, I like the fact that Misty gets chosen to be in a more leadership like position, and you really get a chance to see her step out from the shadow of Iron Fist and Luke Cage.
I forgot she was in that book. It's crazy.
She is. And they have a really nice new collection, so that's why I would recommend that. And while Luke Cage and Iron Fist are great characters to be around, I think, frankly, she's better than that. So there you go. That is all of my recommended reading for Misty Knight.
Yay! Now let's move on to discussion, where Professor Ashley will bring up topics that we can discuss.
Yes.
Very simple.
So kind of the defining thing about Misty Knight is that she is an African-American character. So I didn't want to do a discussion without addressing this, and I want to ask you a question, and it's kind of heavy, I guess.
No.
Do you think Misty Knight is Marvel's greatest female African or African-American character?
No.
And I'm going to table it by saying we can't put Storm on there because she's the obvious choice.
African-American woman?
Yeah. Yes. I'm sorry. If I said female African.
Oh, we can't put Storm because she's African. She's actually African. Oh man. Well, let me think about who are some of our other options here.
Isn't that depressing?
Well, Cecilia Reyes of the X-Men. She is Hispanic.
I mean, Lunella, who is Moon Girl,
okay.
She is African-American, and she is arguably one of the smartest characters in the current Marvel comics universe. But I feel like a character who's only been around for less than 10 issues can't be considered the greatest yet. Yeah. She might get there, though.
Well, here's the problem. Is since you put me on the spot and I don't have any time to research this, I honestly can't think of any.
Right, but that kind of proves the point that I wanted to bring up. We had a Geek History Lesson Extra where we discussed characters of color, and we tried to make a list of all of if we could figure out 10 female characters of color, and it was very hard. And I think the fact that when you think about the Marvel Universe is huge. The Marvel Universe is quite diverse.
Well, as diverse as New York will allow.
Sure. But I mean, there are characters that, like, we have Canadian characters, we have South American characters, we have European characters.
Yeah.
So you take that and then you say, okay, well, let's just do female characters. And I'm going to be generous and assume that it's actually like the world, and about 50% of the characters that have ever existed in Marvel are female.
Sure.
So we're looking at all of them. And then you say, okay, so let's look at all the ones in North America. So you're probably down to a couple thousand characters. And then you say, let's think about the ones who are African American. And the fact that no more than 1 or 2 characters comes to mind immediately, I think is really sort of troubling. And then I think the fact that Misty Knight, I mean, even if you're going to open it up to African characters, you get Storm and you get Lady Black Panther, you're still only at 4 African American characters who easily come to mind. And Storm obviously is your most visible one. But other than that, I would say that Misty Knight is probably the greatest.
You know, it's tough because I just was Googling a list while you were talking. And yeah, there's plenty of men. You know, like Black Panther, Luke Cage,
Sam
Wilson, Bishop, Isaiah Bradley, Nick Fury. But in terms of the female characters that even Google was giving me, they stop at Storm.
Oh, really?
Google won't even put Misty Knight on this list, which is crazy. Like, I'm going to go to this list right now that's on IO9 that says the greatest black women in superhero comics who aren't Storm. Okay, Monica Rambeau.
Oh, Monica Rambeau.
She's Spectrum.
That's a good call.
Okay, so that's a good one. But see, we needed that. I had forgotten about her. These characters they just put on here are not Marvel characters. That's not a Marvel character either. And this is a person right here that I've never heard of. Charlotte Beck, codename Friction.
I don't know who that is.
Oh, you know who? As another one is the Angel girl from Grant Morrison's New X-Men.
Oh, what's her name?
Angel.
Is it Angel?
Yeah. Because she gets married to Beak.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
So we're up to 6 right now.
We're up to 6 right now. But like literally, the sad thing about this is that I'm looking through this list and they're all not Marvel characters. Okay. Here's the thing. This list they put Cecilia Reyes on this list. So maybe she's half African American. I'm not certain.
Like Miles.
Yes.
She could be.
Oh, Misty Knight finally shows up on this list.
Oh, you know who else? The new Iron Man.
Oh, Ironheart.
Riri.
Yeah, Riri.
Yeah, but again, she's been around for exactly one issue. So, but I was going to say that Misty Knight, of all of these, again, we're tabling Storm. Misty Knight has several action figures. You see people.
Does she have several action figures? As far as I know, she only has one.
She has at least 3.
Oh, did you look it up? Okay.
Yes.
All right.
But she had one as part of the Marvel.
She has the Marvel Legends.
She has the Marvel Legends one, and it's a really good one too. Yeah. It's a nice figure. And then she has 2 from that are not very nice.
Okay. Here's the thing. You're probably right. She probably is, specifically because we can't come up with another one. The sad thing about looking at that list right there is made me think like, oh, wow, Marvel, you need to pick up your game here. Because half that list of the people on there, of the African-American women superheroes, were DC characters. So pick up your game there, Marvel. But also, here's what I hope. Netflix series is out. It's pretty cool. She's pretty great in it.
Yeah.
Hopefully that leads to a renaissance for this character. Hopefully this gives her... Because here's the thing about what Jessica Jones did. We're talking about Hellcat now. Who the hell would have ever thought we'd be talking about Patsy Walker?
Right. And Jessica Jones is now... She went from being in one Marvel title. She's across a couple now.
Yeah.
She's much more visible because people really responded to that show very well.
So, you know what? Let's hope that that's the best thing that can happen from this.
Cool.
Yeah. Sorry. It's a very difficult conversation. Sometimes we get real and get history lesson, but sometimes, I don't know. I don't know.
But sometimes characters demand that.
Yeah, that's true.
And we think that Misty Knight is important, so that's why we address that.
I like Misty Knight. I'd love her to show up more.
Well, we're going to talk about that in Geek History Lesson Extra.
I'm excited for that conversation.
Me too.
All right.
Let's move on to the teaching tweet,
yes,
shall
the
we?
teaching tweet where our professor is going to tell you everything you need to know about that character in 140 characters or less based on Twitter. And now, the coolest thing about Twitter is that she can now put a GIF in that tweet, and she doesn't use any of her 140 characters. So there could be a GIF in this audio podcast, and you don't know about it.
I hope people have gifted Misty Knight out of the Luke Cage series.
Remember, hashtag Moonboy is Yoko.
The fact that Misty Knight doesn't have a solo title called The Bionic Woman is frankly soul-crushing. Hashtag Luke Cage.
Hashtag Moonboy is Yoko. Hashtag copyright lawyers. All right, cool. So is that it for the Misty Knight lesson?
That is it for the Afro-tastic, butt-kicking, super spy with a bionic arm Misty Knight lesson.
Afro-tastic, oh my lord.
One of the things that I actually really love about Misty Knight is that she has natural hair. She never has straightened hair.
Yeah.
She always is sporting a fro, which is probably derivative of everyone Pam Grier ever played. And Misty Knight really looks like Pam Grier.
Hey, don't put Pam Grier down.
No, I'm just saying.
Pam Grier's fantastic.
And Pam Grier, of course, famously Coffee, always had an afro in those early blaxploitation films. But I like the fact that she's always been a natural girl.
Mm-hmm. I like her most recent costume, the Fearless Defenders costume. I think that's good.
The red the red suit. Mrs. Peel catsuit.
Yeah, it looked good.
It's good.
Looked really good. All right, cool, guys. That is all you need to know about Misty Knight, and that is all you need to know about that subject. We're closing it. We're closed the door on Misty Knight. Guys, don't forget, if you want to listen to more episodes of Geek History Lesson, you can go to iTunes, SoundCloud, and Stitcher. And over on iTunes, I don't know if you know this, there is a process to leave a review. You can do this on SoundCloud. You can do this on Stitcher as well. But on iTunes, if you leave us a review, we're going to read it on the show. Just like The Doctor Has Died. That was a great username.
Oh, no.
The Doctor Has Died said, I love Geek History Lessons because they teach me new things I didn't know before, and they give recommended readings, which is so great when you are trying to find a comic book with a specific character, which is something that we did on this podcast. So thank you for leaving us that review. Guys, go over to iTunes, leave us a review because it helps us grow our audience and get more students just like you. Ashley, if they want to suggest future lessons like Iron Fist, where can they do that on social media?
Well, they can do that at geekhistorylesson.com or facebook.com/geekhistorylesson. There's a couple different ways to contact us in both places.
That's right. And you can throw the hashtag Moonboy is Yoko, and with lots of Misty Knight gifts at us, at me at Twitter, at Jawiin, Jawiin, and for Ashley, at Ashley V. Robinson. Don't forget, you can check out lots of cool stuff that we do over at youtube.com/Jawiin, Jawiin. Lots of cool things happening over there. I'm Jason Inman.
I am Ashley Victoria Robinson.
And Professor Robinson, would you please close out the case of Detective Misty Knight?
Class is now dismissed.